Welcome to When Spreadsheets Hit the Fan, a Birdview podcast. This is a show for leaders in fast-growing professional service organizations looking for the latest conversations around service delivery best practices. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to When Spreadsheets Hit the Fan. I'm your host, John Litterick. In today's episode, I talked to Sean Collier. Sean is the CEO of Etna Interactive, a digital marketing company that helps elective healthcare providers across North America attract their ideal patient audience so they can build the practice of their dreams. With expertise in online marketing and systems engineering, Etna Interactive helps both private practices and large groups expertly deploy custom online marketing strategies. Sean turns business limitations into competitive edges for maturing companies using data concealed in the organization to release time and generate profits. Sean and I are going to talk about the importance of making a data-driven decision, what happens if you don't, and sort of why a lot of companies still don't make data-driven decisions. Let's jump right into it. Well, Sean, I've been really excited, to talk to you. You do some really incredible work as a creative agency, and, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been around the block a lot on a lot of different companies. So when you look out there in the business world, either in your industry or just in business in general with your experience, what do you think is the biggest mistake organizations are making and they should stop, right away? What's your pet peeve?
My pet peeve. Well, the first one that comes to mind is probably not the question you're looking for, but people taking Zoom calls without an appropriate headset and microphone.
Interesting.
I don't know how many things it can lead to a lot of things, but probably the less flippant answer to your question is what I would coin as making decisions about the direction of a product, a business, a team without the underlying data to support it. And it's something that I talk to my team about a lot. I'm a very data-centric guy. So even though the title of your podcast is When the Spreadsheets Hit the Fan, I am a big fan of spreadsheets, right? I use them all the time. Mostly because I love that underlying data, and it's important to me to use data to make a decision and to track it in its resolution and did it make an improvement, stuff like that. But a lot of organizations don't do that. Myself included, my organization included, there are times at which we don't use the underlying data to make a better decision or arguably the right decision.
Yeah, that resonates with me. And I think nobody would disagree with you that making a decision based on data and fact is important, but people still do, right?
Yeah.
So can you give me an example in your experience where you've seen someone make a business decision, they didn't have the right data or they had the wrong data, and can you quantify for anyone listening to this, what would have been the impact, like intangible things like, revenue, and intangible things like maybe brand and that, we always are listening on, so when we hear those kind of war stories from, someone's been out there like yourself.
So I've run product teams in a number of organizations, and in my current organization, which we're a digital marketing agency, we help clients, across North America to promote their brand and drive leads into their practices. And people don't usually think of product in the sense of this repeatable, unitized thing as something creative agencies really attached to. But we do. And it is a practice that's very important because repeatability of processes, controlling pricing, being able to ramp up resources to do this repeatable, qualified thing is really important. However, in the product world, one of the biggest challenges that you can run into is if you build a thing, is this really what your customers want? Can you really sell it? And will they really pay for it?
Oh, makes sense. Yeah.
And in, a number of, and I'll speak from experience inside of Etna, a 20-year-old organization, there are times where we build to a client need, right? You've got some really excited salesperson. I know you work in sales.
Yeah.
But some really excited salesperson out there talking to a client like, they want this thing. I know we can do this thing. They're like, okay, that's cool. I see where you're going. I think the product can do these things. We can twist it, shape it, build it, whatever the case may be. And it might satisfy that one client. But if you don't do the legwork, homework to understand, does that thing that you want to build, that product extension, the product shape, is it scalable to other people? What is the market for this? What is the market opportunity for it? Right. That's something that I think product organizations fail at a lot, unfortunately, because somewhere inside the product organization, someone's got that great idea. And again, it might be a really, really good idea, but if you can't sell it to someone who's willing to spend money for it at the scale that it took you to, recoup your initial investment to build it, and, the 5x that you wanted to make on that investment of time and effort and so forth, then you've really done your business a disservice by not looking at the addressable market, at the existing clients who want that thing. Find some way to test and understand the impact of this product that you want to bring to bear. So that's something I see happen a lot, because people get really excited about building new stuff, right? It's fun. It's interesting to build new product. It's exciting to market new product. But if you can't sell it, if people aren't going to buy it, then you've wasted a lot of organization time. So it's one of the things that I've seen build a lot of excitement, and then unfortunately a lot of depression in the teams that build that product and bring it to market. And then they realize, well, it's not selling, it's not moving, it's too complicated to sell, it's priced wrong, it doesn't fit the real need of the market, whatever the reasons may be. It doesn't incentivize those product teams to develop something new next time.
Yeah, you're right. What comes to mind is the term perpetual pioneering, right?
Yeah.
You're never getting into like being able to, get out of that mode. So yeah, that really resonated with me. I think, a lot of our listening audience, being business leaders and senior operational practitioners, are gonna resonate with that, right? Building a product, it's a gamble, and you want to be making the right gamble, right decision. So that was, great advice. Okay, so if we stop making decisions without data, okay, then is it as simple as saying, we start making decisions with data, or do we start doing it with a certain type of data?
Yeah, I think there's a sliding scale of some sort. There are clearly some decisions that I don't need data for. What kind of sandwich am I going to eat for lunch, right? There are things that it would be overkill. Like, let me build a spreadsheet. Hold on. But there are things where it can matter, right? I'll use another story as an example. Pricing changes, right? So Etna did, probably lots of companies around this time are making pricing changes. Underlying markets and costs of delivery for goods is changing. But when you make a pricing change out in the marketplace, that's an important and impactful decision that you need to understand. And it's hard. It can be very hard to make that judgment call of, is this the right one to do? Should I make this change? For margin purposes, for how it will sell in the marketplace. Does it allow my customers to still buy this product that I'm still doing? Does it change my market? So when I make this change, how much data do I really need? Do I need a lot? Do I need a little? Do I need to analyze a ton, or do I not? And any one decision that we make, I definitely won't say you always have to have data, but I will say that when you make that decision, you should understand what's the data that you're going to change. Am I going to change how fast a step gets done? So I need to be tracking time on task or something like that for a process. Am I going to change my adoption rate for product sales? Am I going to change contract timelines? Like, what am I expecting to change with this thing? And make sure I'm measuring that so I can see the impact of my decision. So maybe if I didn't have all the data up front, I should at least be knowing, what am I going to change with this? And let's make sure I measure it after the fact, so I can know, I did make the right decision. That was a good decision. Or, it was mostly right. I didn't get it 100% right, and now I need to make another pivot of some sort.
Oh yeah, and so that heuristic constant learning, you're just going to be constantly improving as well, right? As you have that data and analyzing it as the new data come in, because you're right, you can't get all the data sometimes up at the front, right?
Well, and a lot of times organizations haven't been tracking that thing that you're thinking you're going to make a change to. Like, oh, we don't look at the data that way. I don't, I can make a guess at it. I can use some other data that approximate it, this element that I'm looking at, but we haven't been tracking it. Well, we probably should be tracking it now, because we are making an organizational change to impact that thing. So we should know what the change is when we make it.
Great. Oh, that's awesome. So one of the things that we want to do here on When Spreadsheets Hit the Fan is we always want to challenge our guests to try and take their wisdom of what they would stop doing and start doing and turn it into a simple maxim. What would you start? What would you stop doing? Do you think you could do that here?
A simple maxim, right? Something that can be applied, spoken in short term, but applied by everyone in their day, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're in the boardroom and you just, stop doing this, start doing that. That's exactly right.
When looking at a decision that you need to make, can you quickly estimate the impact of your change on your team, on your clients, and on your business at large? And if any of those get out of from a small, medium, large perspective, if the impact is large on any three of those things, then you should probably stop and get more data.
Okay, good.
That's
very
first
good.
Try. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I think, because anyone that's obviously just kind of, listening to this while they're driving, that's what's going to stick with them and resonate with them. So, that's great. Okay, let's talk about some of the theory, right? Obviously, it's so common sense that you should make decisions with data. And,
sure.
We hear this all the time, right? Data-driven decisions. So why are so many organizations still not doing it? What do you think is the reason why they're not doing it?
I want to say urgency. I think that a lot of organizations are moving very quickly, right? Leaders and executives at companies all the way down the line to everyone who's working on any individual project. They have to make hundreds of decisions a day. And they know that if they deliberate on one too long, it might have an impact. Or maybe they just don't want to deliberate on it too long. I don't want to have to think about this because I don't understand the urgency I don't understand the impact of it. I can make a decision and move on. So that volume of things and the speed with which we have to move in any given day is driving us to want to get to a decision. We don't want to deliberate. We don't want to dilly-dally. We don't want to hold up the client. We don't want to hold up our teams. Whatever that impact is, we want to get there. Not from the standpoint of I got to make a snap judgment. Let's hope not, because those are probably not good for you. They're more emotionally driven than logically driven. But speed matters in our businesses. It matters for our clients. And because we want to make a decision fast, we don't necessarily want to go dig out the data. And that really probably brings the other side of the coin is it's often harder than it should be to pull out the data about things. So when you think about the systems and processes that you use to keep track of your finances, keep track of your workflow, keep track of your contracts, your client support, whatever the case may be, you need to be able to get that data out of those systems to ask and answer the question of this decision that you're trying to make. So I got to go fast, but it's hard for me to get the data. So I'm not going to go get the data. I'm just going to make a decision.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense. I would agree with you. In my experience, it's urgency, right? In the back of your head as a business leader, I should get more data on this and really think this through and, test it, A/B testing and all that. But again, that urgency, right? To get things done, to move, you take shortcuts. So, can you give us some examples of when you've seen someone, even yourself, who's taken the time to slow down, not bow to the tyranny of the urgent, and has taken the time to get the data, even if it took a little longer than expected, and how that made a better decision? Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, definitely. We went through a process recently of selecting a new CRM provider, right? It's new systems software to help run our business. We've been running for 15 plus years on effectively kind of a homegrown solution, as engineers will do. As we talked about in the pre-show, like engineers will solve problems by creating software themselves often.
Yeah.
And we did that, right? We built and ran a system for a very long time. And we ultimately, the technical debt that was created with that system is outweighed by the effort required to move to a new system. So we get into this process of evaluating, CRM systems, looking at your, all the litany of everyone that could be involved in it. And I ran that part of the process and probably took about an initial 3 months to do a requirements gather and look at the usual suspects and get down to the demonstrations and start drilling into it. And I could have gotten to a decision at the end of that relatively quickly. And then my CEO, Ryan, threw a curve at me and said, well, what other things do we want to solve for in this? And what else can we solve for, having to do with some finance questions, right, that intersect with our CFO? And I maybe pause for a second and go, yeah, I should probably take a step back and gather a little bit more, and wound up unpacking a process that our finance team uses, because I was thinking very operationally, as a COO probably should and does, and didn't think about the finance side of this question that Ryan was asking of me. And we wound up arriving at a whole new, it's a revenue booking process that really changes the game for us and automates a ton of steps that were very manual for my CFO, Grace, and her team. And we were able to remove work that didn't need to exist or won't need to exist when we have it deployed, and give more time to the teams to actually create value in the organization versus doing all the clickety-click. And by the simple ask of saying, well, what more could we do with this? Where else should we go? It gave me, I guess, a little bit of latitude to say, like, I'm done with the decision, let's move on. To say, okay, well, I'm freed up now. My boss is saying it's okay for me to take a minute and think further about this and uncover a section that's going to create a huge benefit for our company when we roll it out.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it's an amazing story. And just because you took the time to do it right.
And I think that maybe the impetus there was, I was challenged with a question which had the implication behind it of, like, take the time to think about this question, right? So as leaders, we can go to our teams and say, I have this problem. I need you to solve this problem. And they might hear it as organizational dictate, like, oh, I got to go now, move. Like, no. I need a solution. Here are the parameters that I'm thinking of. I need these things solved, but I need you to take this. I need you to think about it and come back to me with how you think you want to solve it, and the data underlying that, and so on and so forth. To take the time to do it right, as long as we agree upon the when. And I'll tell you if it's an urgent thing. This is on fire because my client is screaming at me, versus this needs to be done right. This needs to be done complete. This has a huge impact to the organization. I need it thought through. This has a small impact to the organization. Just give me your best judgment.
Okay, that's great. Love the stories. They're just, you've shown, like, the benefits and the costs of not, making a proper data driven decision. I love that you have said, it's the tyranny of the urgent. I think you're right on that. That resonates with me. That feels right. But if I want to get started and I want to help my organization, whether I'm a consultant or I'm a chief operating officer or I'm the owner, the CEO, how do I get started? What's step one, step two to make my organization a culture of, making decisions by, having the right facts, the right data? What do I need to do?
The first one is, I think, modeling from the top, right? You got to have leaders in the organization that believe in not making knee-jerk decisions, even though they might have the experience to say, this is the right thing to do. I've been through this 30 times. I can do this. At least to back those decisions up with, here's the data that I know, because I'm looking at the P&L monthly. I'm looking at the incoming saturation, whatever those elements are that you get as a leader, right? You get a lot of data kind of shoved at you as a leader, hopefully. And you're digesting it and you're understanding it, and you've wrapped your head and your fingers around that data. And you can use and expose that to team members that you're asking to solve problems for you and say, I need this solved. Here's some data that I think impacts that. And I think this should be part of your decision process. So you model that behavior. The second part of that is asking questions of them to say, hey, you came up with this process change. You came up with this decision to do X, Y, Z. Can you show me how you arrived at that? Can you show me the data that influenced your decision here? And by asking for the data, it should be evidence. Like, I need to see and understand, not to second guess them, because clearly that conversation could take a left turn there and go into a wrong place. I'm not trying to second guess your decision, but I'm trying to understand how you arrived at it and what was the data that was evidenced by that process. So the modeling and asking the questions, I think, are key elements to help the organization get there. The last one that I'll offer is how, we do this as one of the core values of Etna, which is make it measurable. So that's something that needs to be at a mission statement, company values level. And this is always hard things to do for a leadership and executive team, is to kind of recast the values for the organization. But we chose, when we did this, last time we did this was like 6 years ago or so, when we cast value statements, we put data and we put measurability specifically, not just data, because data is kind of an amorphous word, but put measurement as a core value. And that should bring to mind and give you the opportunity to talk about, how are you going to measure that change? What were the measures you used to do this? What was your measures of success, right? So it becomes part of the vernacular.
Wow. Great advice, and really easy to follow. I mean, someone can follow that like tomorrow, right? They can get started on that tomorrow, right? Model the behavior, start asking questions that elicit the person that's making the decision to show that they've gotten the data, and put it into your core values, write it right into your guidelines for your company. Really easy to implement. Let's talk about, though, as easy it is to implement, we know things go wrong, right?
Yep.
Something always happens, Murphy's Law. So tell me where you've seen someone try to do this and they had some kind of resistance, and how did they overcome that challenge, that obstacle to making their organization more data-driven?
Yeah, it's my head kind of split in two directions there, thinking about two ways things could go wrong. One is that you create an opportunity for decision paralysis, in that I haven't collected enough data. I'm struggling to go get the data. I'm scrubbing from multiple systems to compile things down. So and this is very common when you have a lot of legacy systems, right? For your company's been around for 20 years, guaranteed you got some legacy systems, right? And pulling the data out of those systems and mashing it up together can be hard. And people will spend a lot meaning more than probably should be for the level of decision, right? A small, medium, large impact again. And people will kind of get wound around the axle of saying, I have this data, I'm not sure what it tells me, I don't think it's enough, I don't think I'm prepared to make this decision, or I can't even get at the thing I'm trying to approximate. There's a fun story about this one. So in the digital marketing space, things change all the time. Google is, when it's changing its rules for how it does its search engine rankings, right? So when you get the actual search results up on a page, it's using all kinds of algorithms and logic. And obviously, as an agency, we want to get our clients to the top of the page for the keywords and phrases and locations that they really care about. And so there was a change that Google made last year called the Google Web Core Vitals Update, which is basically Google saying speed matters, make things fast all the time. And they came out with 3 primary measurements of how they study fast on a website. And so we responded with, we need to refactor how our clients' websites that we build reflect on those 3 measures of performance that Google will use to then influence the search engine rankings. So our clients' pages will be faster on those 3 metrics and appear higher in the search engine results. And then we did it, we rolled it out, we rolled it across a whole bunch of clients, and it's done good things. It is absolutely measurably better performance on the site. But Google didn't do exactly what they said they were going to do. And the results of what is it measurably better for our clients' sites and the consumers that are going to them? Yes. Does that change the behavior of the ranking on the search engine results page? I don't know. And that's the problem. I get stuck in, my teams get stuck in analyzing the impact of this very sizable, very effort heavy change. And I can't give you an answer. We decided to make the change because it made sense to make the change. But now that I've deployed it, I can't easily say, did it do, from a Google perspective, what we wanted it to do? And so I'm stuck in this paralysis mode of not being able to answer as good or bad, or maybe I don't want to say it's bad because we spent so much effort at it. And so that's something that teams can get stuck on and get wound around the axle of delivering data before they can make the decision and say, it's okay to lose. It's okay to get it wrong. It's okay to let the data not be there, because ultimately you have to set a boundary for your decision. When are we going to say this needs to get done and here's where we're going to go? Or at least how far are we going to go before we have more data and complete this decision set?
Yeah, that's awesome. You don't want to bow to the tyranny of the urgency, like what you said at the start, but at the same time, you don't want to shift over into the other ditch and have paralysis by analysis. And I think you've navigated for us kind of a good middle of the road, right? So that decisions, will to the best of an organization's ability at any level, they'll start making decisions based on the right level of data that they can acquire and understand.
Right. And evaluating that against the impact to your team, to your customer, and to your organization. If any one of those this could have a big impact onto any of those three, then it's okay to take the time and ask for help, right? I hope that everyone gets the opportunity to work in an organization as fun as my team is, because I can ask for help even as a leader in the organization. If I am running into a wall, I can grab one or more of my reports, my team, and say, hey, look, this is what I'm seeing and I don't understand it. Can you help me make heads or tails of this? Because I don't feel comfortable moving forward with my decision until I can understand this. And so by saying that, by giving space to it and letting other people come help you with it, you can often, move yourself off the marker that you're stuck on, because it is a big impact thing and you don't feel comfortable with making that final decision because the data is inconclusive.
Excellent. I know every business leader out there is doing a gut check right now and asking themselves, have I created a proper culture, to make data-driven decisions? Am I modeling out the behavior for everyone myself? Am I asking those right questions? This was high value, Sean. I really want to thank you. You gave great stories. They really resonated with us. And, thank you for joining when Spreadsheets Hit the Fan.
It was great to be with you here, John. I really appreciate it.
Projects, resources, finances, a single source of truth for service delivery teams. Birdview PSA helps increase profitability by automating and optimizing the entire service delivery cycle. To learn more, visit easyprojects.net/birdview-PSA. You've been listening to When Spreadsheets Hit the Fan, a Birdview podcast. Keep connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you like what you've heard, please rate the show. That helps us to keep delivering the latest and best practices for professional service teams. Until next time.